The Hooghly River flowed calmly through Kolkata, its waters reflecting the crimson glow of the evening sky. Yet, despite the peaceful exterior, the city hummed with tension. West Bengal had always been a state of sharp contrasts: poverty and riches, intellect and ignorance, tradition and rebellion. Now, it was a state simmering on the brink of eruption. Meena stood at the edge of the river, watching the sunset as the sounds of distant protests reached her ears. She hadn't meant to join the protest when she left her house that afternoon, but the anger, the frustration in the streets had pulled her in. The old alleys and bylanes of Kolkata, usually buzzing with tea sellers and children's laughter, were alive with slogans and the smell of burning effigies. "We want justice. We want justice." The chant grew louder as she made her way through the crowd, her feet moving instinctively toward the source. The banners bobbed above the heads of the protesters. Some held images of the chief minister, others carried portraits of farmers, their faces weathered and worn. The recent cyclone had left the rural areas devastated, but the relief funds had been slow to arrive, trickling through corrupt channels, leaving the most vulnerable to fend for themselves. Meena's son, Rajat, had died just a few months ago. He had been a farmer in a small village near the Sundarbans, working tirelessly to make ends meet. After the storm, the crops were gone, the land destroyed, and the government's promises of aid never materialized. Rajat, like so many others, had waited, begged, borrowed, but hope had run out. One day, Meena received a call: her son had taken his life. She had cried in silence. In West Bengal, her story wasn't unique. It was just one among the thousands. The cycle of poverty and political apathy had deepened over the years, turning into a dark vortex that swallowed the dreams of so many. And yet, the politicians were too busy in their power struggles to notice the growing despair of the people. The current situation was no longer just about the cyclone, or the farmers, or the corruption. It was about a people betrayed. Meena knew this as she joined the march, her voice blending with those around her. The ruling government had lost touch with the very essence of Bengal, the revolutionary spirit, the cultural richness, the land of poets and freedom fighters. Now, it was mired in scandals, factionalism, and an iron grip on power. As the protests snaked through the city, it grew in size. Students from Jadavpur University, taxi drivers, shop owners, and factory workers all joined in. The streets were filled with an electric energy, one that buzzed with both hope and fear. But the fear was not of the state, nor of the police, although they had been deployed in large numbers. No, the fear was deeper than that. It was the fear of what would happen if nothing changed. If the voices of the people were ignored once again. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the streets, and a wave of panic surged through the crowd. Tear gas canisters were launched, and riot police began to advance, shields up, batons swinging. Meena felt the sting of gas in her eyes, but she did not falter. Her breath came in short bursts, but her determination was steady. She had lost too much already. She had nothing left to lose. As the chaos unfolded, Meena found herself face to face with a young officer. His eyes, wide and uncertain, looked at her as if asking for something: understanding, forgiveness, perhaps. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The noise of the city dulled, the shouts and the screams blurred into the background, and there was only the officer and the old woman in front of him. She stood tall, holding his gaze. "You're one of us," she said softly, her voice hoarse but steady. "Don't you see?" For a second, the officer hesitated, his baton shaking slightly. Then, with a sigh, he turned away. The moment passed, and the crowd surged forward again. That night, the city of Kolkata burned with the flames of protest, but it also flickered with something else: resilience. Meena knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The politicians, with their lavish rallies and grand speeches, would try to dismiss the voices of dissent. They would say it was all a misunderstanding, that the government was doing its best, but Meena also knew that the people of West Bengal had had enough. This was not just a protest. It was a battle for dignity, for justice, for survival. As she stood on the bank of the Hooghly once more, the moon now reflecting off the water, Meena felt a deep sense of connection to her land. The river had seen it all: British rule, partition, the Naxalbari uprising, and now this. The silence of the river, however, did not mean surrender. Beneath its calm surface, there was power, waiting to rise, and so, the people of West Bengal waited too. Not in silence, but in unity, with the hope that, this time, their voices would finally be heard.